Waiting, waiting, waiting. And I have learned that the spinning ball... there we are. We're good. Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me again. Daily Art Adventure 497, nearly all the way to 500. And I am working, as you may know, on this first of a series. I think it's going to be a series of painting called Traffic, or Painting Traffic. In this case, it's not traffic, it's parking lot, but the same concept of prominent cars, accurately rendered, but loose accurately rendered. That's all I'm going to say about that. Let's get started. So all the acrylics are done. You can go back, if you missed it, you can go back and watch me do everything up until this point. I did the white without your help here in the last hour or so. I've taken a good break, got a nap, practiced my trumpet, did a few things around the house. I'm anxious to get back to painting now. I've got some Indian yellow, got liquid, of course, on my brushes, and some Indian yellow. The main thing I'm going to do to this scene, as it was just a moment, the main thing I'm going to do to it is warm it up. So there will be a lot of yellow and orange, oxide red, which is a brown. I'll probably do that over the entire canvas and then come in and begin doing bits and pieces of other colors. Let's go to, oxide red, which is a brown, of course. Confusing to newcomers. And one of the funny things you have to get used to if you start painting is like all the names of these colors. Indian red, there's another one, red light, not light red, red light is not red, it's brown. Indian red is not red, it's brown. Yellow ochre is not yellow, it's brown. Naples yellow is not yellow, it's brown. Oxide red is not, you get the idea, it's brown. These are traditional names, often referring to what the original pigment was. Here's one of my favorite ones. One of the colors that we use the most, I would think, very common, is ultramarine. Ultramarine sounds sort of like a superhero military person, but it's not. Do you know what it means? I figured it was, for years, I assumed it was, made out of some gem called, or mineral called ultramarine. No. It means from across the sea. Because when it came to Europe in the 14th or 15th century, whenever it was, it came from far away, it came from across the sea, so they called it across the sea. And to this very day, we call it across the sea. That's a funny one. Whew, my studio is smelling a little bit smelly now. Let's zoom a little bit. Hey, good news for my regulars. My Mevo camera showed up in the mail during that break. Hallelujah. Not a minute too soon. Long story for you newcomers. I won't get into it, but piece of equipment that died a few weeks ago, and I finally got around to getting it replaced. Okay, now, warm over the whole thing. Now I'm going to go in there and cool some things. I want these cars down, and you could ask, well, why do you do, if you're going to make it blue, as I am right now, why do you make it warm first? Because when you're mixing the canvas, you have like ultimate control. And being a natural born control freak, just like you, I want absolute control. There are ways to, painting like a control freak is usually a strict, that's how you get tight paintings. But there are ways to paint like a control freak without looking like it. This is one of them. What I'm controlling is the color, of course. There, doesn't that look better already? Those two cars are cooler. And I believe I want this parking lot, the asphalt. I'm looking at the photograph, which is right here, so you can see to my left. I believe I want the asphalt also blue. So I want the foreground cool, very warm in here. The last thing I do in the glazing step of the process, the very last thing that I'll do is pick up a rag and lift out things that I want white or light. And even though I really like the wall of this building, that color, I want to see what it would look like. I can undo this if I want to. I want to see what it would look like if I made that cooler. Yes, good choice. So I'm sort of isolating the warm area by doing that. I know I'm going to use some of this. I'm using ultramarine blue now to do the cool stuff. I mean cool color. I don't mean cool like groovy. Groovy. I'm showing my age there, aren't I? Groovy, dude. I actually never was a hippie, so the only time me and my siblings said groovy was when we were making fun of hippies, to tell you the truth, but we knew what the word meant. Groovy. Oh boy. Anyway, when I say cool, I mean cool color. Unless, of course, I mean groovy, then that means something different. But right now, I'm using it in the artistic way. You know, I talked. If you saw my last broadcast or two broadcasts ago, perhaps I talked about. I hope I don't overdo this painting. And to tell you the truth, I already have I'm a little bit anxious that I might have already overdone it. Doggone it. Even though I was trying to hold back the whole time. Well, live and learn. In fact, that's a great way, that's a great description of good painting. The good artist's journey is live and learn. That's what you do all the time. Every time you do a painting, you learn something. Every stinking time you do a painting, you learn something. So I'm going to hit that magic spot yet. Okay, now, is there any? Yeah, there is. I want some more red in here. Right down in there. Let's try that. And my favorite red for glazing is, without a doubt, is Permanent Rose. Sounds like an old-fashioned love song. Permanent Rose, she was my love, till she weren't permanent no more. Sorry, that's the end. I'm not gonna do any more of that. You can come out now. Think about it. Somebody needs to write a song called Permanent Rose. Okay. You know what's one thing I don't have here is nice dry rag. These all are slightly damp. They'll work. By the way, one of the magic formula tricks for my approach to painting that is acrylic underneath and oil on top, one of the reasons that works is because I am using liquin. And liquin has this completely accidental, I suppose, serendipitous relationship with water. Even though it's an oil-based product, but it plays very well with water. And I am certainly taking advantage of that property. First of all, by putting it on top of an acrylic painting that is dry but not cured. They say acrylics have to cure, and that makes sense to me. Most things that are in the drying process do, when they're dry to the touch is one thing, but when they're actually physics dry all the way through. Okay, here's another. Let's do just a little bit. So I'm looking at there's no question in the photograph. Let me show this. I guess I can zoom in here so you can see it up close, more or less. The brightest thing is the clock face. But then there's highlights on these cars. They're very bright. And then the building. But I'm really not committed. I don't have to do any of that. I'm close enough here. So real gently, very gently taking stuff out to create highlights. When I start teaching my Thursday night art class, one of the topics we will probably do, I'll do simple things like how to paint cars, how to paint trees, how to paint feet, how to paint squirrels, how to paint waterfalls, how to paint waves, how to paint sky, simple how-tos. But very often I'll say, I'll do more abstract, like how to paint white things or light things. Like this is a white building. I'd like to say that again. This is a white building. Look how white it is not. It is very not white, and that is very much on purpose. How do you paint white things? By using all kinds of colors except white till the very, very last step. All right. I think I'm ready to move on. Very often at this point, I will either draw with a pencil or I'll draw with brushes, dark details with brushes. One of the deciding factors is if there's a lot of pencil already showing from previous, then I won't do pencil now. And there is a lot of pencil, so nope, no pencil. And however, there's not a lot of brush work, but there is some. So let's do that. So it's time to paint dark details with brushes. Again, if you're following my formula, if you will, I'm following the book. I'm doing the normal thing here. Dark is next. So I'm mixing up ultramarine, some oxide red, so that gives us a very neutral dark color. But as my friend Mike Rooney reminds me, be careful of that neutral stuff. You don't, most of the time when you're painting a colored painting, unless you're doing one of those moody black and white things, most of the time when you're doing a colored painting, you want more color, not less. Or I like to put it this way, given the choice, our eyes, that's human beings, given the choice, our eyes would rather see yes color than no color. I know, rather tortured syntax, but it helps get the point across. Our eyes, the seeing part of our brain, would rather see yes color than no color, or more color rather than less color. Unless you're making some unusual point. Let me zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing for a while. And here's my reference photo still. Paying quite a bit of attention to it, believe it or not. Okay. One of the things that I want to accomplish in this stage right here, the dark drawing with dark paint. It's transparent, of course. I'm assuming I don't need to tell you that. To come in here and do this with opaque paint would result in chalky, muddy, very unattractive colors. So whenever you get dark, you do it with transparent. So this is liquid plus purple, blue, and brown. Purple, blue, and brown with a generous mixture of liquid on the brushes. And it's at the moment kind of a purplish cast. See, that's nice. So one of the things I started to say, one of the things that I want to accomplish with this layer right here is I want to make sure that I have all of my adequate darks in the painting. Theoretically, of course, theory is one thing, reality is another, but theoretically, this is the last time in this painting that I'll be making anything darker, okay? So before I leave this stage, I like to try to sort of sit back and take a careful look at everything, say, just like that. It's important. It helps to have a beard. Say, are my darks dark enough? Did I say that enough? Are my darks dark enough? Are my dark areas, do I have adequate? Why? I already used this word trick once. I'm going to use it again. Given the choice, all things being equal, of course, how many times are all things equal? Not very often. But given the choice, all things being equal, our eyes would rather see yes value than no value. Our eyes, if they get a chance to vote, they'll say, more value, more value. They'll say, we want to see a wide range. Now, again, there are exceptions to this. There may be extenuating circumstances, like maybe somebody is painting, and in my mind, probably not painting very well, painting, I've done this, painting a misty, quiet, soliloquy-ish, what does that mean? Just means you're alone. Misty lake, canoe on a lake with nobody, early in the morning. So you want everything to be all midtones, no lights, no darks. Well, that might be the way to go sometimes. Not sure why my music keeps stopping here. I actually have legal music today. The music that I'm playing in the background, which I'm assuming you can't hear, it's mostly there to keep me from getting earworms. I love that. It's a German term. It's a German expression for song stuck in your head. I'm tormented by getting songs stuck in my head. So the music's on in the background, mostly to help me with that. Usually I have it so soft that you just can't hear it, but you might be able to hear it, and I'm happy to report that it's actually legal today. It means I paid for it. My dark areas, of course, are very important, and they are the counter to the light. I know that sounds like really stupidly obvious, but what I want to say is this: our eyes naturally gravitate to the light in a painting. And so we want to make sure that our light is very exciting. Play of light. I usually say play of light is the single most important aspect of a painting. But the way we achieve dramatic play of light is by having sufficient darks. I'll use a really embarrassing good example. Thomas Kinkade, painter of light. One of the reasons, and he was a good painter. I usually talk, I go on and on about how we're all supposed to hate Thomas Kinkade. If we're a real artist, we're supposed to hate Thomas Kinkade. And I talk about how that snobbery is a short, not a good solution in life. Anyway, he was a good painter of light, largely because he was a good painter of dark. Years ago, I used to like to jokingly, went back, especially when he was alive, laughingly, jokingly, half-jokingly call myself the painter of light and dark, doing one better than Thomas Kinkade. But anyway, the way you achieve dramatic light effects is you have to have equal and opposite dark effects. Otherwise, your light, you don't have any light if you don't have any dark. Okay, so at this stage, I am, whoops, I'm off the screen there, sorry. Let me come up anyway. Do you like my electric easel? Yeah, it was given to me. It's a long story. I like it fine, but it's not my favorite. It takes too long, all that time that I just wasted waiting for it to come up. But I like it fine. Hey, I'm not looking a gift horse in the mouth. Are you? Mouth. Don't look a gift horse in the mouse. Likewise, don't look a gift mouse in the horse. I'm sorry. It's really weird tonight, evidently. Part of what is drawing me to this series of paintings is the desire to render automobiles quite accurately. I've worked, I mean, without getting ridiculous, tracing, measuring, and things like that, without getting ridiculous, I've worked pretty hard to try to render this vehicle accurately, which is not my inclination. I don't care that much for cars. Well, then why am I painting them? Oh, because I care for line shape, line shape, composition, color, texture. That's why. And these cars are just a very fun excuse for doing all of those things. That's why. But I want them to be accurate. I don't want to drive people crazy who know their cars. By the same token, I don't want to paint paintings that invite car nuts to say, "Oh yeah, that's a Subaru X5Z14, blah 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 blah." I'm making that up, as any car person could tell, because I'm sure there's not one of whatever I just said. There isn't one of those. This is a Cadillac, though. I know that. I recognize that little insignia right there. Okay, so I think my darks down here in the foreground are adequate. Wait, oh, there's a tire I'm missing right here. Here we go. Now, this area up here at the top, so let me back up just a second. I think if I do that, the automatic exposure will darken down. Come on, there we go. Yep. Okay. Now, just a little bit of detail up here. Of course, as you can tell, I want this painting to have a rather you know, that time right before the sun goes down, that brief moment when everything takes on a warm brown orange glow. That's what I'm after here. I imagine you can tell that already. I haven't decided, believe it or not, I haven't decided what color my sky is going to be yet. Most of you, especially if there's any first-timers or new guests watching me, you're assuming that the sky is going to stay orange. That would not be a safe assumption. In fact, no, it is not going to be orange. But it is very intentionally orange right now. It's going to be blue-ish with orange in it. Okay? I stand back now. Do I have adequate darks? And you know what? I don't think I do. There's no very few number 9s on the grayscale, 1 through 10. 1 is white, 10 is black, 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 black. There's no 10s in here at all. Several 9s and 8s. Whoops, I just realized I didn't do these windows or this Palladian shaped sign here. And normally, you know, the rule would say you should have 10s. I might just violate that rule on this particular painting. But I do want, I think right up here. So using energy language, I talked about earlier tonight, what I'm doing right now with dark, dark, dark value, that's fairly high energy. These strokes I'm putting in right now are fairly high energy, right? Because I'm creating contrast. And it's right next to a light area. So yeah, that's better. That is better. Now in the photograph, these windows have shades pulled, and so they're quite neutral color, but I think I'm going to change my mind on this one right now. And yeah, that's better. I'm going to have the should I have curtains? You know, no, but I don't like that. There we go. That's better. Yeah, there we go. That's better. So a little more energy. Again, being aware of energy is a key, to me, key concept in good painting. A little more energy down here. Again, because it's very dark. What's on my brushes, by the way, is ultramarine and oxide red, blue and brown, creating a virtual black. Oh, yeah, this tire right here. All right, I think I have adequate darks. Okay, clean these brushes real quickly. And I'm moving on now to the fuzz layer. But now that I have my Mevo camera back, I can actually take a little break right here, end this broadcast, and then start again in a few minutes. So that's what I'm going to do. So when I come back, it'll be fuzz, which means light, translucent, local color, accurate color, and very soft edges. If you haven't seen that before, and very strange thing to call it the fuzz layer, you may benefit from watching this. So come back and join me in a few minutes, will you? I'll be back in just a little while. Hey, Mary Alderson, I'm sorry I missed your comment earlier. I don't know if you're going to catch this later, but thank you for your chat. All right, I am down to, or up to, depending how you like to count it, I'm up to the fuzz, so named by me. First time this dawned on me was July 4th, 2016. I just happened to remember when I first stumbled on this trick. So the fuzz layer, it's the next to the last, well, or maybe third to the last if you count pencils, next to the last stage, next to the last phase of my painting process. It's nearly impossible for a painting to have too many soft edges. It's very easy, in fact, likely, that most paintings have too many hard edges. Did you catch that? I'm preaching that to myself all the time. I'm still on a journey. I was very fortunate to get juried into the National Oil Painters of America show 2 years, 2016. Haven't been into the national show since then. Still trying. It was a glorious experience. I was 200 paintings, 2,500 people applied, 200 got in, 2,500 mostly professional artists juried, applied, 200 less than 10% in. And I was arguably the worst artist in the group. Of course, you could argue that I wasn't, but that's all right. My point is there were so many good artists. And it was quite fascinating for me to walk around and see 200 of some of the best paintings in America. And on a scale from tight, now there were a handful of super, super tight photorealistic paintings. There were. But generally speaking, if this is super realistic and this is crazy loose, if I was here, more of the paintings were looser than I was. And I took note of that and said, No, I'm not painting this way simply because that's how others paint. No, I looked and said, no, they're better than I am. They are better than I am. They know something I don't know. And so I've incorporated this fuzz layer, okay? As it sounds, it's very much soft edges, very soft edges. Now, let me just take a minute and describe what soft is. If this is one color and this is another color, what makes a soft edge? Well, in this case, it's a range of about 6 inches. Okay, so I mean, very soft edges. Not always that wide, but sometimes. Very soft edges. Literal color, or what artists call local color, realistic color. That's important. This is the time for me to get colors right. In fact, I'm going to start making the sky blue. I won't finish it. I'm going to start making it blue in this stage. I'm going to start with the clock face, since it is so prominent. It's right there front and center. And I've mixed up some pale yellow stuff. And here I am painting the clock face. Did you get it? Now, in the course of doing that, because that dark stuff was wet, I've messed up the dark stuff and dragged it in here, drug it in here, messed it up. But I'm going to leave it. Now I am going to clean off my brush, by the way. It has taken a long time for me to develop the nerve to do this. I really had to be convinced that I wasn't ruining my painting. Next, I'm going to tackle. I'm going to warm lights. Can you see the photograph over here? See these warm lights in the windows and back here? Okay, so I want to tackle that next. So I'm going to yellow up, warm up this white a little bit more. Add a little orange to it. I'm going to need a bigger pile than that. Let's do some more. My brushes are fairly dry, I think it's fair to say. They're not loaded with paint. And you could call this scumbling. Yeah, it's sort of scumbling of a sort of scumbling. Scumbling just basically means painting with opaque paint, dry paint on your brush. If it's transparent paint, then it's not scumbling. That's a glaze. But opaque paint applied very thinly is one real quick definition, or description, I should say, of scumbling. By the way, it really does help to paint with two hands when doing this, because if I tried to do this with one hand, I would run out of courage. Plain and simple. But because I'm painting faster than I can think, I don't have time to think. Now, can you see already though, all this part of this area of the painting has all gotten softer. Just with that little bit of scumbling, of fuzz, what I call my fuzz layer, just that little bit, the painting's getting softer. And what did I say? Usually softer is better. Usually softer is better. And you could ask, well, what do you do with a random stroke like this that comes down? Chances are it's perfectly fine, just leave it. I'm going to remove it with my finger, just like this, just so you can see if you get a mark that you really don't like, you can do what I just did. You can just smudge it out with a finger. A little bit of glow back here. Okay, now I'm going to change the color of what I'm doing here, adding some, without cleaning my brushes. So it had a pale yellow. Now I've added phthalo blue to it, so it's a sort of a dull aqua color, because I want to do some of this stuff down here, the blue side of these cars. So I do want them, I want them cool, want them bluish. In fact, I'm going to add some ultramarine to this mixture. Whoops, I'm almost off the picture, aren't I? There you go. Yeah, I like that color. Let's do that on the side. This is a gray car here, actually silver gray. I guess silver. I guess you'd call it silver. Both cars are actually silver. I didn't even think about that until right this minute. I'm sure I was being influenced by their color, but hadn't identified it. Oh yeah, two silver cars next to each other. Pretty ubiquitous, really, in the parking lots today, right? All right, now that color that I've got, I'm going to add a tiny bit of violet to it, just a tiny bit. So now I've really got a cool gray on my brush. It's very hard to define what color it is. Let's go up here to this house now. Okay, now up to the roof. And the roof, in the photograph, the roof is very green. Teal green, bluish green, I don't know what, viridian green. It's a little bit too green for my painting, so I'm going to leave it green, but I'm not going to leave it as green as it is. Fair enough? So I'm going to push it back a little bit, even from where it is right now. Yeah, and there's a little bit too much energy. I've talked a lot about energy today, and I've actually got a little bit too much energy way up here. So this is the time to push it back, not to obliterate it, not to get mad at it. Goodness sakes, never get mad while you're painting. Never get mad while you're painting. Don't. Don't do it. Let me look at that a little bit more. Mixing, trying to decide what color I really want here. It's green, but it's, no, it's too green. Here's a good color, a good green killer is purple, dioxazine, the violet. Great for killing green. There we go. Now it's just too dark, so make it lighter. Okay, now while I've got greenish stuff on my brushes, let's go ahead and do some fuzz over here in these trees. So going back initially to a prettier green, greener green. Don't forget the sides of the canvas. Otherwise, you have to come back when you're all done and paint the sides. That's a bother. I don't like doing that. That might be good enough. Now I'm going to do a tiny bit of, add some blue, phthalo blue to that. And do this tree. There's two trees here, one evergreen further away and then a deciduous tree up closer. All right. I'm going to put those brushes down and clean them up later. Pick up two clean brushes. Let's tackle this sky now. Now, another word for my fuzz layer could be atmospheric perspective. Because you all know about atmospheric perspective. What's another word for atmospheric perspective? Fuzz. So, let's get some atmosphere fuzz going in here. Also some sky holes. Should sky holes be hard edged or soft edged? The answer is both. If you're a beginner, your tendency is going to be to make them not hard enough, however. Isn't this crazy? Isn't this, look at it, I mean, my brushes are going a good 2 inches into the roof of this building and 2 inches into the trees, and I'm just making a mess. Woo-hoo! If I hadn't done this 100 times already, I would swear that I was just ruining this painting. But I have done it 100 more times, and I'm not ruining this painting. It took me just about 100 times to convince myself of that, too. All right, almost. And there's so many advantages to this fuzz layer thing. One is, I want to make this a bluish sky. I guess I'm going to do a little bit more blue at the top there. I want this to be a mostly blue, but an evening blue sky. Does that make sense? So it's got a lot of yellow and orange in it, but still blue, not orange like it has been up until now. And if I had to invent cloud shapes all in the last layer, final edit layer, I'd be trying to make stuff up. But now, I've already got hints of cloud shapes already up there. I like what's going on here, though. I want a little bit more lighter blue, of course, closer to the horizon. You all know that, of course, right? The sky gets lighter and warmer the closer it gets, more blue in it. I mean, more yellow in it, more yellow-orange. In a blue sky, it gets more yellow-orange the closer you get to the horizon, generally speaking. And of course, it gets lighter. You already know that, of course. Okay, let me go ahead and explain something. Why is it that I am not ruining this painting? How can I say that I'm not ruining it? The answer is I have actually two. Pencils is next. I have 2 more layers to go on this painting. And the last layer is hard edges. Now, not very many hard edges. Remember, it's easy for a painting to have too many hard edges. So I'm going to really pull back on the reins when I'm doing the hard edges. But I've already given myself a whole bunch of soft edges. I'm doing blue, by the way. I just decided that roof needed to be lightened. Now that I got the sky lighter, I realized the metal roof, shiny metal roof, should be reflecting more of that blue sky. So forgive me while I take just a minute. So the reason I haven't just ruined the painting is because the last layer I'm going to come in and do very, very carefully placed hard edges. And for instance, like here, do you see how this blue sky completely bleeds into the roof? But if I come back and do a little hard edge, just a tiny one, right there, then our brain interprets that as the edge of the roof, and we don't just see overlap anymore. I hope that made sense to you. Made sense to me, and I'm happy. So, hey, you know what? I just saw something. I thought I was all done, and I now realize I'm not. Now that I've got some blue sky, that changes everything. In fact, that's a good rule. Of course, you can't know what color a landscape is until you know what color the sky is. Now that I've got that blue up there, I realize that I really, really need more blue on these cars, especially right there, the trunk of that car and the rear windshield of that car and the rear windshield of this car. There we go. There we go. And the back of this car and the bumper here. Okay, everything that's pointing up needs more blue in it. And even add a little ultramarine for this. Whoops. Too much ultramarine. Did you hear that? Whoops. There we go. Even a little bit of a blue in the asphalt down here. What color is asphalt? Generally speaking, it reflects the color of the sky. It's gray reflecting the sky. Whew. All right. The fuzz layer is finished. I only have 10 brushes to clean. What I'm going to do next is pencil. So little by little, my order has changed. Used to be pencil, then fuzz, then final, but now typically it's fuzz, then pencil, because with that fuzz layer, I have eliminated tons of pencil. Now, please understand, I don't need any pencil in order to render this painting. It's all rendered. The drawing is done. I'm not using pencils to make corrections. Now, I'm using pencils at this point very much just because I like how it looks. I like the feel. I like how the scratchy pencil looks next to the smooshy paint. Okay? But I'm going to do that off camera, if you don't mind. I'll be back in 30 minutes, I would think, to do the final edit layer, which is covers, get this, the final edit is opaque paint, mostly light colors, almost all light colors, covers the least area of the canvas, of any of the layers, covers the least, and takes far longer than any other layer. So, in fact, sometimes the final layer edit takes as long as all the previous layers put together, sometimes. Why? Because I slow way down and think, and I'm making fairly small marks. So I'll be back in a little while. Thanks so much for watching. Can I look at your chat? I don't think I can. Again, sorry, that's the downside now of the Mevo, is I can look online, but I can't catch them later. Oh yeah, sure, Thinker888. Thanks, Rod. I'm glad I caught that. So here's my palette. I have a couple videos where I give you a tour of my palette. Basically, I do rainbow order, starting with ultramarine, with dioxazine purple, violet, purple, cool red, orange, warm yellow, cool yellow, warm green, cool green, warm red, warm blue, cool blue, ultramarine is cool blue, and if the next color in order would be purple, violet. So that's the circle. And then I do my browns beyond that, usually I do my browns from light to dark. Now, these happen to be reversed. So often, I don't have any on this palette, but often my first brown will be Naples yellow, which is like yellow ochre, but much lighter. And the brown I use the most for sure is oxide red. And then I often I don't have it on here, but I often use a raw umber, a very dull brown, muddy brown for killing colors. I don't have any here right now. If I want some, I'll run upstairs and get it from my upstairs studio. And then of course, the white is Alkyd, fast dry Alkyd. And Liquin, right. Familiar with Liquin? Liquin Original is my medium for fast drying. And that's it. Thanks for asking. All right, am I missing anything else? I don't think so. Thanks, guys. I'll be back in a little while. You can watch me do the final edit. While you're gone, I'm going to do some pencil stuff. Thanks for watching. Hey, gang. Thank you for joining me again. So I'm on the home stretch. I would sure like to finish this painting tonight, 8:40 p.m. I think that's reasonable. Leaving room for me to do glazes tomorrow, of course. A few very simple transparent oil glazes tomorrow. Okay, so I am down to the most important. Let me zoom in so you can see the work that I did in the middle of the painting here. So a lot of pencil lines, actually more pencil lines than I normally do. I just felt like doing more. And I sincerely hope that feeling, that impulse was not misguided. So now I am down to white, opaque, not white, light, opaque, almost synonymous terms. White makes it opaque. White, opaque highlights. So the painting, overall, the painting is darker than I want it to be, although everything's very close. I have 3 places I can start. Actually, I just noticed something. I missed something in the fuzz layer, so I'm going to go ahead and do it right now. And that is, I didn't do any color on these 2 figures here. I want this one to be wearing red, so I'm going to fuzz him or her in red, and I want the other one to be wearing blue. So forgive me, I'm backing up here a little bit. Just a hint, and then I added some people back here in the pencil stage, so I'll go ahead and give them a little color as well, just a tiny bit. Okay, now, where do you start the final layer? 3 options. Used to be 4, but now the fuzz layer has taken care of the local color problem. I can start either with the lightest, brightest, whitest thing, the lightest thing, or the focal point, or the sky. Those are basically the 3 options. Sky is a good option in this one, but nope, often 2 of those will overlap, and in this case, clearly it does. Now, I'm not sure if the focal point is this clock or this area right here. Doesn't matter, it's those 2. I'm going to start with the clock, and again, for you newcomers, I use titanium Alkyd white, fast dry white. What that allows me to do, it gives me the freedom to do impasto, I suppose, if you're Italian. Does come from the same word as pasta, by the way. Paste. If I want to do some thick, impasto means thick, pasty painting, right? If I want to do some thick stuff, which I do usually, and thick stuff on a painting is almost always light. And that gives me the freedom to do impasto without titanium taking weeks and weeks to dry. So that's why I use the Alkyd dry. Now, just a word about all those pencil marks. I don't try to paint inside the lines ever. So I don't worry about covering up, obliterating, eliminating pencil lines. In other words, I go ahead and obliterate them. And if you follow me often, I'm going to repeat myself here. Once you get into the realm of opaque painting. Now, some of you, if you're a traditional oil painter, you're in the realm of opaque painting from beginning to end. So yes, this applies to you, but I'm only in opaque at the very end. Once you get into the realm of opaque, here's a really good trick. It almost always looks good after you've put down a color, like I just did on that clock face. It almost always is a good idea to come back and do a slightly lighter color right on top of parts of what you just did. I think I'm going to do a little, I'm going to call it a Jeremy Sams trick. If anybody knows Jeremy, you can tell him that I'm talking about him over here. I do a little Jeremy Sams trick. It's not typical of me. And that is, it actually is in the photograph. So I'm doing a fairly deep yellow here around this. Needs to be deeper than that, needs to be more intense. So let me mix up a Jeremy Sams, good buddy of mine, very good painter, young painter here in North Carolina, really knocking it out of the park, doing a great job, supporting his family as an artist, winning competitions left and right. He does this kind of thing a lot, where he does a color aura around a bright light. Now I do that like around a traffic light, red light. I do a red aura and white in the middle, but he does imitating photography, if you will, which is what I'm doing right now, along with him. I'm going to let it go at that. I don't think I've done it as well as Jeremy does, but I need to go look at his stuff and take a few notes. Now let's come back to doing some light stuff. We, human beings, we don't like seeing dark paint on top of light paint, but we do like seeing light paint on top of dark paint. So I broke the rule a minute ago by adding yellow to the edge of this white, because the yellow was overlapping on the white and it was not a pleasant feeling. But now I'm fixing it. Every little thing going to be all right. My first impulse with this clock face is unlike in the photograph. Can you see the photo way back here? The clock face is entirely bright white. But I am not going to do that. I'm doing graduated. I think it's more interesting. Generally speaking, graduations, that is a fade from light to dark. Generally speaking, graduations are more interesting than flats. Okay, so that's just, put that down. While I've got this color on my brush, I'll go ahead and do some of the gold-like stuff around the outside of this clock. Okay, probably good enough right there. Now the clock has little brass bands around it. Well, those are mostly all done. Okay, I think I'm done with the clock. Now I'm going to tackle the yellow gold warm lights on this storefront. Now the great danger, if you're trying to paint in my technique at all, I'll go ahead and tell you, the greatest risk of the whole process is the layer that I'm at right now, is that you, or I in this case, will paint too much. Just paint too much. And I talked earlier this evening about me having several weeks ago a 3-day retrospective where I was forced to look at hundreds of my old paintings because I was editing many of them for Fine Art America. By the way, you can get prints of many of my paintings at Fine Art America. And I discovered that the paintings I liked best, historically, my paintings that I liked best were the ones that were the least finished. And I was glad to discover that, but I was a little chagrined to discover how many paintings I ruined by going too far. And I'm still at risk of doing that very thing right here, right now, with this painting. So I'm trying to ride the brakes the whole time and say, okay, don't do too much, don't do too much. I don't think I'm going to do too much. Of course, that's what I thought last time. For instance, let me talk to myself for a minute. It's very possible that this Cadillac down here is completely finished. Well, I'll tell you what, it's not, but it's very close. Okay, it is possible, but it's not. Let me do a little bit and finish it right before your very eyes, because I want you to see how little. So I just put down those yellow brushes and pick up some cool paint. Mixing. Here, you can watch my palette while I'm doing this boring mixing. So that's phthalo, viridian green, tiny bit of dioxazine purple. So it's a very pale aqua color, but not as intense as that. Okay, back to the painting. So Cadillac, finished Cadillac. Now that I put down one color, I follow up with a slightly lighter. That's done. I don't mean the whole car is done, but it is almost done. Now I think I'm going to do some reflection of a little bit of these lights later, but I'm going to wait. When I'm doing those, I'll do that reflection. And a little bit too much, but that's good right there. So I'm doing light and reflection the entire, making my lights glow all the way through the entire painting process from beginning to end. You probably can't see this, but there are actually some very faint pencil lines, random pencil lines going right through this car. And again, I'm doing more of that kind of thing. What's the purpose of it? Well, I think it looks cool. It creates energy. It's interest. Hard to describe why I think that looks good. But with my painting I'm doing right now, I'm actually accentuating those lines. I just painted up on both sides. I know you can see that. There was a very faint pencil line, and I just painted up to that line on both sides. That has nothing to do with realism. Does that make sense? By doing that, I'm not trying to capture a realistic feel. That's pure abstraction, but I like it. So obviously, people who are bonkers for realism are not going to be bonkers for my paintings. What I would hope is that somebody who thinks they're bonkers for realism might look at some of my paintings someday and say, you know what? I thought I liked realism, but dang, I like that. Okay, almost done. Mixing up a little bit more warm white so I can get some reflection on this, the back windshield. I want a bigger brush here. Whoa, just one. Thank you. That Cadillac is nearly finished. I'm going to put these brushes down. I'll be doing a lot more of that blue stuff later. I'm looking for two fairly small brushes. That'll do for doing red taillights and so forth. Now these taillights are not turned on. They're not lit up, so they're not going to have an aura and a white center. They're just going to be plain red. I'm using Scarlet Lake here. A little bit of this blue highlight down here. Not much. I don't want much attention this far, this close to the bottom of the painting. So I don't want to do much down there. That's probably all. Then just a little highlight way down here. Just a very, very faint one. Very jittery line. You know, letting the canvas pull paint off the brush in an irregular manner. Okay, then a tiny bit on the logo here. The impression I would like to leave you with right now is that, dang, you don't paint much of that Cadillac, do you? Nope. In other words, I'm almost finished. I'm going to, again, follow my own advice. Whenever you put down a color, it's almost always a good idea to follow it up with a slightly lighter version. So now I'm mixing up a pale red. And it almost doesn't matter where you put this lighter. Again, I'm not indicating, I'm not reflecting something I see in the photograph really at all. This is purely abstract composition. There, I believe my Cadillac is done. Yes, I'm going to leave all of that stuff. Are you kidding? That's that underpainting stuff, that orange, those drips. Absolutely. In my opinion, that's what makes this whole thing interesting. Anybody can paint a realistic Cadillac. I'll repeat that. Anybody can paint a realistic Cadillac. It is the abstract aspect of the painting of the Cadillac in this case that is interesting. It's not the real. I mean, it's realistic enough, right? There's no question that that's a car, and anybody that knows anything about cars knows that's a Cadillac. So that's easy, but it's all the abstract elements. Let me put it this way. In real painting, that's what I rather snobbishly call the way I paint, the way Rembrandt painted, the way Frans Hals and Frederick Remington, and frankly, most of the great painters through history, eliminating the hyper-realist crowd, eliminating this. There's a place for that. This ain't it. So I call that real painting. In the world of real painting, where every subject matter that we paint is, if you will, a thinly veiled excuse for having a playground, a romp of colors, values, textures, shapes, line, and composition. In other words, the elements of design. Am I painting these cars because I'm in love with automotive art? I hope the answer to that is obvious. I'm having a great time. But no, the cars are simply, if you will, a thinly veiled excuse. They are a thinly veiled excuse for color, texture, value, and so forth. And yes, I think that that the same could be said for everybody who does what I call real painting. Forgive me, that is a very snobby statement, because there are a lot of wonderful people and many of my friends who do very realistic painting. And I'm saying that what they do isn't real painting. Nah, I wouldn't say that to them. Nah. But anyway, I've got to come up with a name. What's his name? I'm drawing a blank at the moment. Famous painter, I'll think of his name in a minute, came up with a name for his style of painting, and I think it applies to mine. It's called abstract realism. It's definitely realism. There's no question. There is no question these are cars, car, van, clock, building, trees and sky and people, right? So it's realism, definitely. But all of the representational stuff, again, is a thinly veiled excuse for color, texture, value, light and dark, values, textures, balance, composition, line, shape, and so forth. Okay? And I think, since I've gone this far on this rant, I think that the biggest turning point that most painters, wannabe painters, or even professional painters, the biggest turning point in their career needs to be, now maybe some of them get this early, needs to be when they understand, most, that they understand that they are not painting pictures, pretty pictures, they are painting paintings. If you watch me often, you've heard me say that many times. When I judge shows, I judge a fair number of local art shows in a year. Local, like in the state. And most of the paintings that I'm judging, many of those artists have not yet ka-chunked over into the next level or layer or phase of maturity as a painter. They're still painting pictures, pretty pictures. Now, again, some of them do it. Some people do such exquisite, pretty pictures. That's all right. I'm not here to criticize them. They're doing what they're supposed to do. But most of them need to switch over to understanding that what pretty pictures is not what we're about. What we're about is paint. That is the great lesson of the 20th century. The good. There was a lot of bad, a lot of crazy, bad stuff that happened in the art of the 20th century, but that was the main good one. Once cameras came along, artists lost their job. We were no longer cameras, and it took us a while to find our footing. Our job is not to paint photographs. Our job is to paint paintings. Anyway, I as you can hear, I rail on that. It's certainly my own journey. For years and years and years, I painted pretty pictures. And I still enjoy painting pretty pictures on occasion. But finally, a light bulb came on, and I realized, oh, you know what? I'm supposed to be painting paintings, not pictures. And I mispronounced the word on purpose. Okay, where to go? I think I'm going to tackle this car. Now, just as the Cadillac, as you can see, I did minimal work on that. I need to do just a little bit more on this one. And by the way, as I continued to you know, as when I did the pencils, and I went, oh, you know what? This car got stretched out. It's really supposed to be squeezed together quite a bit. And that is, in fact, the kind of mistake that I hope to do less and less as I do these traffic paintings. I hope to honestly get better at painting cars, because I would like them, as I said at the outset, I would like them to be accurate. I would like them to be very, very accurate, even though, like the Cadillac, I'm quite happy with that. Even though it's very loosely rendered, it's accurate. There's the sweet spot. Now that's, for me, my journey for the last 8 years is, at least, I don't know when I started, consciously saying to myself, this is my goal, this is my trajectory. I want to paint more accurately and messier. Messier and more accurate. So that's been, and I was already doing that to a degree 8 years ago, but that's been a conscious. So I like this painting okay. I wish this was more accurate. I like it okay. I wish it was a little messier. And then you could say, well, if you wanted it messier, why didn't you just paint it messier? That is a really good question. It's because whoever would say something like that clearly is not an artist, because you can't get anywhere without getting there. The only way to get there as an artist is to get there. I know that sounds like double talk, but all of you artists are nodding with me right now. I can feel it. The only way to get there is you just have to slug it out. You just have to do it. There's no shortcut. And usually progress happens, as an artist, progress happens in fits and starts, as they say. It happens accidentally. Now, you can take a class and you can be influenced by a teacher. I hope you're being influenced by me to some degree. But you know good and well you can't be me. Lord help you if you try to be me. It just doesn't, you can't do it. I can't be anybody else. As much as I like Richard Schmid's paintings, I ain't him. It's not because I lack the skill. Indeed, I do lack the skill, but that's not the reason I can't be Richard Schmid. The reason I can't be him is because I'm not him. Every human being, just like the nose on our face is unique as can be, just like our signature is absolutely unique. So the marks that we put on a canvas are absolutely unique. Nobody can make the marks that you make. Nobody can make the marks that I make. So teachers can only do so much good for you. They only help but so much. So it's really up to you to improve. You need to improve all by yourself. You're on your own on that one. And Gizmo Goose, the creative process knows no rhyme or reason. That's pretty accurate. That's exactly right. So you just have to slug it out and do it yourself. It's bad news, good news. The good news is only you can do it. The bad news is you got to do it. and I was saying the progress as a painter usually comes in fits and starts. You accidentally, this is clearly the case for me, you accidentally stumble on something that works for you. A light bulb comes on, you do something. It's usually do it first and then the light bulb comes on. So when you're painting, you need to be free enough. You need to make enough mistakes. Here's one of the dangers. Let me jump to this point. Here's one of the dangers of watching me or following anybody or taking a class from anybody. Okay? Especially if you're a wannabe painter and you're sincere and you're serious and you want to get better and you want to work hard. And so you go take a class, let's say from a big dog, Kevin McPherson. And Kevin gets up there and he tells you, he says, here's how you do it. You do it like this, 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 this. Ba, 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 ba. A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you come home, it's like, oh man, now I know how to do it. Now I know how to do it. Kevin McPherson told me how to do it. I know how to paint now. Anybody ever had that experience? I mean, I think every time you take a class, at least if you think it's going to be your eureka moment, you're in for a real disappointment. Because you start trying to do what Kevin McPherson told you to do, and you go, what's going on? It's not working. It's not working. What am I doing wrong? What you're doing wrong is you ain't Kevin McPherson. You can't even make one brush stroke the way he does, or the way I do. Here's the good news. I can't make a brush stroke the way you do. Kevin McPherson, for all his skill, he can't paint like you. You're the only one on the planet that can paint exactly like you. I hope that's encouraging. So what happens is, one of the downsides is trying to copy, trying to emulate, imitate anybody in the world. That's the danger. Don't even try it. Be influenced by me, but you can't paint like me. I say, yeah, go ahead, please, try to, learn stuff from me. Try this. I have several things about my painting are very, very idiosyncratic. Nobody that I know of paints the way I do. And that's not an arrogant statement, that's just fact. I don't know anybody that paints this way. So, say, I like that. I want to try that. Good, try it. You can't be me. Go for it. Try all you want. It won't work. So, back to my earlier statement. Most of the progress we make actually happens by accident. You're painting along, maybe after you took that class by Big Dog Kevin McPherson. I really like Kevin, by the way. I'm not picking on him at all. Very much like him as a person. And I've never taken a class from him, but I've been in places where he's demoed and so forth. I've seen him live. And so you take that class from some big dog, and you go home and you're mulling around, and you get bummed, first of all, because you can't paint the way you thought that person would taught you to paint. But you just keep muddling through, you keep pressing through, you keep doing it. And all of a sudden, something accidentally, if you will, something accidentally ka-chunks into place. You do something, hardly knowing how you did it or what you did, but you do it, and you go, oh, that's kind of cool. There you go. That's how most progress happens. I can point to several of my idiosyncratic things. I could give you the whole story, how I started. I won't. I could tell you how I started with transparent layers of color. I could tell you how I started with abstract painting underneath everything. Right? The very first thing I do here is an abstract painting. I could tell you how I got how pencils happened. I could tell you how the fuzz layer happened. All of those were complete accidents. I was minding my own business, painting along, and all of a sudden something happened. Now, of course, in order for something to happen, that means you have to paint with some degree of freedom. That's what I was starting to say, too, that when you take a class from a big dog, one of the dangers is that you'll tie yourself up in knots and say, no, now I know the right way to paint. I have to paint the way Kevin McPherson paints. That would be a grave mistake. You do not have to paint like the way Kevin McPherson paints. In fact, you can't. Have I made that clear yet? That brings up another principle I like to talk about often. I call it the donut of creativity. Okay, now, I have a couple different donuts in my painting repertoire. This is a good donut. In other words, this donut you want to eat. This is one you want to chow down and chomp down on this donut. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to hit the hole. The hole is air. Nobody wants to eat the middle of a donut. I don't mean a donut hole. That's something else. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to eat the middle of a donut because there's nothing there, right? And nobody wants to eat outside the donut because there's not. So everybody wants to hit the donut. Here we go. There's the donut of creativity. First of all, let me describe the hole. So if you go take a class from a big dog, and let's say Kevin McPherson, I'll stick with him. Big dog, who I like. You take a class from a big dog, and he teaches you, he tells you the right way to paint. And you come home and you religiously, that's a really good word there, you religiously obey what he told you. Do you see where this is going? You lack creativity, you lack freedom. That's the hole. You're confined. You're stuck in a rut. You could take me, for instance, my painting style and say, well, I like painting the way Dan Nelson does. And he does 13 steps if you want to count. Sometimes 12, sometimes 14, 15, but generally right around 13. And you can say, well, those are the magic 13. If you painted that way, you'd be in the hole of the donut. You'd miss the donut by hitting the hole. That's kind of pretty, don't you think? So as you can see here, all the midtones I'm leaving alone. It's only the highlights that I'm touching. Okay, so that's the hole, is if you're stuck in a formula. That's the downside, the dangerous side of having the way I do, I have a formula. The danger is getting stuck in the formula. That's hitting the hole of the donut, missing the donut because you hit the hole, okay? Now, what about what's outside the donut? The outside the donut is too much creativity. So inside the hole, not enough creativity, not enough freedom. Outside the hole is too much freedom. And you might say, what do you mean? There can never be too much freedom. Oh, no. Yes, there can. And frankly, for most anybody who went to college and majored in art, oh my goodness, I look back at my college experience and hang my head in embarrassment. Oh, we were creative, all right. We were encouraged to be creative. That was part of the problem with the art department I was in. We didn't develop any skill because we were too busy being creative. Ooh, that's a good way to put it, okay? I'm actually going to pick up a pencil here. That's crazy, painting. No, I'm painting with a pencil. That's even crazier. So yes, there is such a thing as too much creativity. Too much creativity is you don't learn anything. Like, let's pretend I wake up tomorrow and I say, golly, I wonder what it would be like to paint on bricks. It sounds kind of fun. It sounds kind of fun, actually. On bricks, I got a whole stack. Let's pretend I got a stack of bricks in the driveway. I wonder what it would be like to paint with bricks and crayons. And you put the crayons on the bricks and you put them in the oven and melt them. Oh, that'd be so cool. Groovy. That'd be so groovy, dude. That'd be so groovy. That's the way college was. Like, woohoo! Nothing connected to anything. That's missing the donut. So in art, in painting, you want to be in the donut, not stuck in a rut, but not so crazy creative that you're all over you don't get anything. So pretty much every time I paint, I'm in the donut. There are several things about this painting that I've never done exactly this way before. A little bit more pencil than usual. I mean, the things are so subtle I can hardly mention them. So, but every painting I do is a little experiment, a little outside the hole of the donut. Get it? I'm not stuck in a rut. I do not follow my own formula religiously. I follow it generally, but not assiduously, not religiously, not carefully. If I do that, I am in the donut, not in the hole. So there you go. Boy, that was a long tirade, wasn't it? I hope you found that at least amusing, if nothing else. Maybe instructive. I have a feeling, though, I'm getting a little bit long on this broadcast, and I'm going to sign off here, call this finished. I'll keep painting without you. I want you to know, so I spent quite a bit of time and covered up a fair amount of this car. That's the exception. The rest of the painting I will not do that carefully at all. Like the van back here, that van might be completely finished. There's two ladders on top of the van, a red one and a blue one. I definitely want to make that a blue ladder, but the van might be finished, etc. So again, the most realism is right here in front. That's pretty standard for painting. I'm going to, of course, I'm going to do the wheels, the hubcaps on this car. I wonder if I can, there, I've got image of it right there. I want to get these hubcaps believable, but not hyper detailed. So I want it to be believable, accurate enough, but not, they're very, I can't even see the pattern. I can't even figure out the pattern, frankly, on these particular hubcaps. So that might be all for the first color. Then again, I'm going to practice what I preach here. I'm mixing up a lighter version of that and coming in and just doing highlights. Sparkle, it's a good word for this too. I am very much looking at the photograph, but I'm painting it there. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to carve up this wheel. Right now it's misshapen. I need to cut some of this brownish color in there. But I can do that without you. This part of the painting process is quite slow, as you can see, compared to everything else that I've done. Let me repeat something I say often. If someone were to watch, someone like yourself, if they were to watch me paint the first 12 layers of my painting process, they would say, oh yeah, Dan Nelson, he's that guy, he paints really fast the whole time, two hands really fast the whole time. That would be a wrong impression. Unless you have to see me paint this last layer. When I'm teaching this class with live students, I say, okay, for the first half of the class, I'm going to dare you, I'm going to beg you, force you, urge you, cajole you to try to be as messy as I am. They never make it. They're never as messy as I am. They're always neater than me. I tease them and say, of course, you're going to be neat because you think you're a better painter. Yuck, yuck. That's being facetious. Then when we change gears, halfway through the class, we switch to this. And I say, now I'm going to paint very neatly, and I'm going to urge you, beg you, cajole you, harass you, be nice to you, try to get you to paint as neatly as I do. And they don't do that either. Okay, so the first 12 steps, if this is, I don't know how many layers here on this one, but typical, the first 12 steps are all fast and loose. Last step is low and slow, is careful and slow down. So if you've only seen me paint the first layers, now again, I'm not covering up much square acres, not very many. It's like this Cadillac. You know, I did about 10% of that has paint on it. I'm letting 90% of it is the underpainting showing through. That will continue throughout the whole painting. This car probably has the most intense overpainting of anything in the painting. Anyway, I hope people like my painting. I told my wife today her job is she's going to contact the owners of this building, see if they want to buy this painting, or at least buy a print off Fine Art America. And this is in Pinehurst, by the way, Pinehurst, North Carolina. So it is a charming little village. Many of my traffic paintings are not going to be charming settings. This just happens to be the first one. It is, the setting is mildly charming. The cars are ordinary cars, like you see everywhere. Pinehurst, if you're a golfer, you know exactly what that is and where that is. I don't golf at all, so when I visit Pinehurst, I take a tour of the golf course just because it's famous, but I don't do any golfing on it. I take pictures so I can paint. All right, it's been good. Thank you for your company today. I will be broadcasting tomorrow. Hopefully this will all be dry, and I will come back and show you how I do final glazes, which is so much fun. Very simple. It'll be 10 minutes of painting, 15 at the most, and it just gives a little final to the painting when I have the opportunity to do that. I'll probably sign the painting today and call it done at that point. Okay, if you enjoyed this, please give me a like, please give me a subscription, hit the bell, and tell your friends about me if you like me. If you don't like me, just keep it to yourself, would you? Okay, thanks. Bye.